The celestial prophet drifted in the empty darkness of space, dead in the water. Well, dead in the vacuum, technically. Captain Vex Thor stood on his bridge, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture that every species in the galaxy recognized as frustration. "How long?" he demanded. 4 days, sir," his first officer replied, her antennae drooping. 28 engineers. All failed. Vex Thor wanted to throw something. His ship, his beautiful merchant vessel, had become a joke. The delegates heading to the Galactic Trade Summit were furious. The crew was embarrassed. And worst of all, he had no idea what was wrong. The engine was dead. Completely dead. No power, no plasma flow, nothing. The ship's AI, a sophisticated system called Sense 7, couldn't figure it out. The diagnostics showed everything was perfect. Perfect components, perfect connections, perfect quantum alignment. Everything was perfect, except the engine wouldn't start. 28 engineers had come aboard. Zeltharan specialists, Kralix master mechanics with 17 degrees each, Velthian quantum experts who'd built engines for the Imperial fleet. Each one had arrived confident, scanned everything with expensive equipment, and then left confused and defeated. The latest engineer, a Kralix named Tormix, was packing his scanning equipment right now. His face showed something Vex Thor had never seen on a Kralix before. Complete bewilderment. "It's impossible," Tormix said, shaking his head. "According to every law of physics, this engine should work. The quantum threads are aligned. The plasma manifolds are clear. The power distribution is flawless. But it won't start. It's theoretically impossible." "But it is happening," Vex Thor roared. Tormix just picked up his equipment and left. Vex Thor slumped in his command chair. 4 days. And now he had to explain to Galactic Transit Authority why his ship was blocking a major trade route. "Captain," his first officer said quietly, "perhaps we should call for a tow. Take the ship to a starbase. Let them strip the engine down completely and rebuild it." "That would take 3 weeks," Vex Thor muttered, "and cost more than this ship is worth." He stood up and walked to the observation deck, needing to clear his head. Maybe some meditation would help. Or alcohol. Probably alcohol. The observation deck was full of passengers, all looking miserable. Families with children. Business travelers missing important meetings. A group of Velthians playing some complicated card game to pass the time. And there, in the corner, was a human. Vex Thor knew humans, of course. The newest species to join the galactic community, only 50 years ago. They were strange creatures. Emotional, impulsive, and surprisingly durable. This one was middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and wearing simple clothes. He was sitting at a table with a teenage human female, probably his daughter. The human had tools spread across the table. Primitive tools, screwdrivers, pliers, wire cutters. He was working on a broken datapad. The girls probably. Vex Thor watched as the human opened the device, poked around inside with his primitive tools, and then did something that made Vex Thor's eyes widen. The human pulled out a roll of sticky tape, some kind of adhesive strip, and used it to secure a loose wire inside the datapad. Then he closed it up and handed it back to the girl. "There you go, Amy," the human said. "Should work fine now." The girl pressed the power button. The datapad lit up perfectly. "Dad, you fixed it with tape," she said, sounding both impressed and embarrassed. "Electrical tape fixes everything," the human replied with a grin. Something snapped inside Vex Thor. Maybe it was the stress. Maybe it was the humiliation of 28 failed engineers. Maybe it was just pure desperation. But seeing this primitive human fix something with sticky tape, while his ship sat dead with theoretically impossible problems, made him angry. He stormed over to the human's table. "You." Vex Thor pointed at the human. You think you're clever with your sticky strips and primitive tools? The human looked up, surprised. Sorry? My ship is broken, Vex Thor continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. 28 of the galaxy's finest engineers have failed to fix it. The problem is theoretically impossible. But I suppose you, with your tape and your simple mind, think you could fix a quantum-threaded plasma drive? The observation deck went quiet. Everyone was watching now. The human looked at his daughter, then back at Vex's Thor. He seemed to be thinking carefully about his response. Probably not, the human said slowly. I don't know anything about quantum-threaded plasma drives. But, he paused. I mean, I could take a look if you want. Can't hurt, right? The bridge crew, watching through security cameras, started laughing. The sound echoed through Vex Thor's communicator. His first officer was trying to suppress giggles. Even some passengers were chuckling. A human. With tape. Fixing a starship engine that stumped 28 experts. It was absurd. But Vex Thor was desperate. And angry. And maybe, just maybe, he wanted to see this human fail spectacularly, so he could feel better about his own situation. Fine, Vex Thor said coldly. Come with me. When you fail, perhaps everyone will stop bothering me with their useless suggestions. The human stood up and grabbed a worn, beat-up toolbox from under the table. It looked ancient, covered in stickers and scratches. The girl rolled her eyes. Dad, seriously? What? He asked. The human said with a shrug. Besides, we're stuck here anyway. Might as well try to help. As they walked toward the engine room, Vex Thor asked the question he should have asked first. What's your name, human? And what's your engineering qualification? Marcus Webb, the human replied. And I'm a maintenance technician at a water treatment plant back on Earth. So, no engineering degree, if that's what you mean. Just a guy who fixes stuff. Vex Thor stopped walking. A water treatment plant? Yeah. Pumps, filters, pipes, that kind of thing. But machines are machines. Right? Can't be that different. Vex Thor suddenly realized he'd made a terrible mistake. This wasn't going to help. This was going to be the most humiliating moment of his entire career. But they were already at the engine room door. The damage was done. Go ahead. Marcus Webb stepped into the engine room, his daughter Amy following behind with her datapad, recording everything. The door closed behind them. Through the intercom, Vex's Thor heard Marcus ask a question that made the ship's AI pause for a full 3 seconds before responding. Hey, Sense. When's the last time anyone actually looked at the physical connections? Like, with their eyes? Not with scanners? Sense 7's response was confused. Physical visual inspection is unnecessary when sensor data is available. Last manual inspection was 2 years ago, during construction. Anically, wearing inspection when sensor. Marcus whistled. 2 years? Man, that's your first problem right there. On the bridge, Vex Thor and his crew exchanged glances. Maybe this would be interesting after all. Marcus Webb stood in the engine room and looked around. The place was spotless, almost like a museum. Holographic screens floated everywhere, showing data he couldn't understand. Complicated graphs, quantum readings, energy flow charts, all useless to him. Around the massive engine core, expensive equipment lay scattered. Molecular scanners, quantum resonance detectors, plasma field analyzers, tools that probably cost more than his house back on Earth. Marcus ignored all of it. Sense. Can you turn off these screens? He asked. I can't see anything with all this light. Wall. End quote. That is highly irregular, the AI responded. The diagnostic displays provide essential. Yeah, I'm sure they do. But they didn't help the last 28 guys. Did they? Just turn them off for a bit. The screens flickered and disappeared. The engine room went dim, lit only by the soft glow of emergency lighting. Much better, Marcus said, pulling out a small LED flashlight from his toolbox. The kind you shake to charge. It cost maybe $5 back home. Behind him, Amy was recording on her datapad. Dad, what are you doing? Same thing I did when our washing machine broke last year. Start simple. Work up to complicated. Through the security cameras, the bridge crew watched in confusion. Captain Vex Thor sat forward in his chair. What is he doing? The chief engineer, a Velthian named Crix, was watching too. I don't know. He's just walking around. Not scanning anything. Just walking. Marcus circled the engine core slowly. He stopped every few feet to tap on panels with his knuckle, listening to the sound. Sometimes, he pressed his hand against the metal, feeling for vibrations. At one point, he got down on his knees and sniffed near a connection port. Is he smelling the engine? Crix asked, horrified. I think he is, Vex Thor replied, equally disturbed. Marcus stood up and brushed off his knees. Amy, hand me that inspection mirror. Small one. In the side pocket. Amy rummaged through the ancient toolbox and pulled out a tiny angled mirror on a metal stick, the kind dentists use to look at teeth. You brought a dentist mirror to fix a spaceship? She asked. Brought it to look in tight spaces. Same principle. Marcus approached the primary plasma conduit junction, a massive component the size of a small car. According to every scan the previous engineers had run, it was functioning perfectly. All 28 engineers had checked it. Sense 7 had analyzed it 1,000 times. Perfect alignment. Perfect quantum signature. Perfect everything. Marcus got down on the floor and slid the little mirror underneath the junction, shining his flashlight at an angle. Huh, he said. What? Amy asked. Come look at this. Amy knelt down next to him. Marcus pointed the flashlight and adjusted the mirror. See that? Right there on the mounting bracket? Amy squinted. Is that a crack? Yep. Hairline fracture. Been growing for a while. Looks like. The whole junction is tilted. Maybe a millimeter off-center. On the bridge, Crix pulled up the junction's scan data. Impossible. The quantum alignment shows perfect positioning. There's no tilt, no crack, nothing. But Marcus was already examining the crack more closely with his flashlight and mirror. Sense. What kind of bolt is supposed to be holding this bracket? Grade 7 titanium alloy, rated for high-stress quantum environments, the AI replied. Marcus reached up and touched the bolt with his finger. Then he pulled out a simple wrench from his toolbox and tested it. This is a grade 4 bolt, he said. Someone put in the wrong bolt during maintenance. Probably months ago. It's been slowly failing ever since. The junction's been vibrating itself loose, tiny bit at a time. Now it's pointing the wrong direction. He sat back on his heels. Your quantum systems are working perfectly. They're just aimed wrong. Like if you had a laser pointer that worked great, but someone bumped it so it's pointing at the floor instead of the target. Silence on the bridge. Crix started. That's impossible. Our sensors would have detected. Your sensors detected exactly what they were supposed to. Marcus interrupted through the intercom. Perfect quantum alignment. Perfect energy readings. Perfect everything. Because they're measuring the quantum field, not the physical hardware. The field is fine. The mount holding it in place is broken. Vex Thor leaned forward. Can you fix it? Marcus scratched his head, thinking. Yeah, probably. But not the proper way. The proper way would be replacing the whole junction assembly, right? That'd require a starbase and 3 weeks, I'm guessing. Correct. Sense 7 confirmed. Yeah. We're not doing that, Marcus said. But I can jury rig it. Make a shim to realign the junction, then fabricate a reinforcement bracket to hold it steady. Won't be pretty, but it'll work. Jury rig? Vex Thor asked. Dad fix, Amy translated. Like when he fixed our deck railing, with spare lumber and wood screws, instead of calling a contractor. Marcus pulled out his datapad and started sketching. His drawing was crude, simple, nothing like the technical diagrams the previous engineers had created. Just basic shapes and measurements. Sense. Can your replicator make me a piece of titanium alloy? About this big. He held up his hands, showing the size. Doesn't need to be fancy. Just strong. Affirmative. Specifications? Strong enough to hold that junction steady. You probably know better than me what specs that needs. The bridge crew watched as the replicator hummed to life, creating the piece Marcus requested. Then Marcus did something that made every engineer watching want to scream. He pulled out a container from his toolbox. The label read, JB Weld Industrial Strength, Epoxy. Is that glue? Crix whispered in horror. That's glue. Vex Thor confirmed, equally horrified. Marcus was already measuring and marking the titanium piece with a permanent marker. Then he started filing it down with a hand file, checking the fit every few minutes by holding it up to the junction mount. This is insane, Crix said. That junction operates at 3,000 degrees. Plasma pressures that would vaporize most metals. He's using glue and hand tools. But Marcus wasn't stupid. He knew what he was doing. The mounting bracket he was reinforcing wasn't in the hot zone. It was in the structural support area, designed to be serviceable. It just hadn't been serviced manually in years because everyone relied on automated diagnostics. Amy was still recording. Dad, you know this is going viral, right? I'm streaming this. That's nice, honey. Can you hold the light here? Marcus worked for 2 hours, carefully fabricating his custom bracket. He filed, fitted, adjusted, and tested. When it was ready, he slid under the junction with his tools. Sense, I need you to do something for me, Marcus said while working. What do you require? Stop trusting your sensors so much. They're tools, not truth. Physical reality is truth. Sensors just try to measure it, and sometimes they miss stuff. The AI was quiet for a long moment. That is a philosophically challenging statement. Yeah, well, your philosophy left you broken down for 4 days. Sometimes you gotta get your hands dirty and actually look at things. Marcus finished installing his bracket. It wasn't pretty. The welds were rough. The alignment was done by eye instead of laser measurement, and he'd used that adhesive epoxy to seal some gaps. But when he slid out from under the junction and checked his work with the mirror and flashlight, he smiled. That should do it. Junctions realigned. Brackets solid. Should hold for years, if nobody messes with it. He stood up and brushed himself off. But Sense, while I'm here, we should talk about your cooling system. I saw like 17 warning indicators that you're running hot. You want me to fix those too? Or just leave them? Vex Thor pressed the intercom button. You found more problems? Yeah. Nothing critical yet, but your engine's been running inefficient for months. I can tune it up if you want. Might take a few more hours, though. The captain looked at his chief engineer. Crix's face showed a mix of embarrassment and curiosity. Let him work, Vex Thor said finally. What have we got to lose? Marcus spent the next 4 hours in the engine room, and everyone watching through the security feeds couldn't decide if they were witnessing genius or madness. He'd moved on from the junction repair to the cooling system. 17 separate warnings that Sense 7 had classified as acceptable parameters. Marcus disagreed strongly. Acceptable? He muttered, checking temperature readings with a handheld thermal scanner he'd pulled from his toolbox. This thing's running hot enough to cook breakfast on. No wonder you're having problems. On the bridge, The Kralix master mechanic Tor Mix had returned. Word had spread about the human in the engine room, and he wanted to watch this disaster unfold. He stood next to Captain Vex Thor, arms crossed, shaking his head constantly. "This is completely improper," Tor Mix said for the 10th time. "He hasn't followed a single safety protocol. No protective gear, no quantum field dampeners, no certification scanners. He's just touching things. And yet he found problems 28 engineers missed." Vex Thor replied quietly. Marcus was now elbow-deep in a cooling manifold, manually adjusting flow valves while Amy read temperature numbers off a display. "Dad, it says 340 degrees. Still too hot. Sense. Increase flow to valve 7 by 5%. That exceeds recommended parameters," the AI warned. "Your recommended parameters are why you're running hot. Trust me on this one." Marcus adjusted another valve. "Check it now, Amy. 325 degrees. Better. Sense. What's the theoretical optimal temperature for this section? 310 degrees Celsius. So we're still running 15 degrees hot. Let's fix that." Marcus kept adjusting, his hands working by feel as much as by measurement. He'd pause, touch the pipes, listen to the flow, then make tiny adjustments. Tor Mix was practically having a breakdown. He's calibrating a quantum cooling system by touching it. This is a precision instrument requiring molecular-level adjustments. But Sense 7 was watching Marcus work with something that almost seemed like fascination. The AI kept asking questions. "Marcus Webb, you are making adjustments without computational analysis. How do you determine correct values?" "Wha? A. Experience," Marcus replied, tightening a valve. "Every machine's got a personality. You can feel when it's happy, when it's stressed. This cooling system's been stressed for months, running itself ragged trying to keep up. Just needed someone to actually listen to it, instead of just reading numbers." But the numbers indicated acceptable function. The numbers indicated it wasn't breaking down yet. That's not the same as working properly. It's like being tired all the time. You're still functioning, but you're not healthy. Amy, who'd been recording everything, asked, "Dad, how is this like fixing stuff at home?" Marcus grinned. "Remember when the AC was making that weird noise last summer? Repair guy said it was fine. All the readings were normal. But I knew something was off. Turned out the fan belt was wearing down, running rough. And you fixed it with YouTube and $20 in parts." "Exactly. Same principle here. Just bigger and in space." After 6 hours total, Marcus finally stood back and wiped his hands on a rag. His clothes were covered in grease and coolant stains. His hair was a mess, but he was smiling. "Okay, Sense. Run a full diagnostic now. Let's see how she looks." End quote. The AI complied. Numbers scrolled across displays. Graphs updated. Energy flow charts recalibrated. Then Sense 7 said something that made everyone on the bridge sit up straight. "All systems showing optimal function. Temperature readings within ideal ranges. Plasma flow efficiency increased by. This cannot be correct. Co." "What?" Vex Thor demanded. "What cannot be correct?" "Efficiency readings show 14.2% improvement over previous baseline. This exceeds theoretical optimal performance for this engine model." Dead silence on the bridge. Tor Mix grabbed a console and pulled up the data himself. His eyes went wide. "Impossible. These are factory-fresh numbers. Better than factory-fresh. Even brand-new engines don't reach these readings." Marcus pressed the intercom button. "Yeah, about that. Your engine wasn't really broken well. The mount was broken, but mainly it was just set up wrong. Been running inefficient for a long time." He walked to a wall panel and pulled up a simplified diagram. "See? When you had your last major overhaul, the crew followed the AI's recommended settings perfectly. But those settings are generic, one size fits all. They don't account for how this specific engine actually runs. Vexthor walked closer to the screen. Explain. Every engine's different. Like people, you know? You can't just apply universal settings and expect the best performance. This engine's got quirks. For Morgever, when Wergever, the plasma flow runs a bit faster on the port side. The cooling needs more pressure in Section 3 than Section 5. Little things that you only notice if you actually pay attention to the individual machine. So you customized it? Crix asked, confused. Tuned it, Marcus corrected. Like tuning a guitar. The strings work fine with standard tuning, but sometimes you adjust them for a specific song, specific sound. I tuned this engine for how it actually wants to run, not how the manual says engines should run. Tormix was studying the data, his expression changing from anger to confusion, to something like reluctant respect. Your methodology is completely backwards from everything we're taught. We use sensors, data, computational analysis. You used your hands and guesswork. Not guesswork, Marcus said firmly. Experience. And yeah, I used sensors too. Just didn't rely on them completely. Sensors tell you what's happening. Experience tells you why and how to fix it. Captain Vexthor took a deep breath. So, will the engine start now? Should do. Want to try? The bridge crew looked at each other nervously. If this worked, it would be incredible. If it failed, they'd wasted 6 more hours and would still need a tow. Vexthor sat in his command chair. All hands. Prepare for engine startup. Emergency protocols. Ready. Marcus and Amy came back to the bridge. Marcus still had grease on his face. He looked completely relaxed, like he'd just finished mowing the lawn. Fair warning, Marcus said. If I'm right, this engine's going to run better than it ever has. Your efficiency's going to jump. If that happens, and you want to know why, I can explain. But I'm guessing your engineers aren't going to like the explanation. Tormix bristled. I assure you, human, we will be perfectly professional about. Yeah, okay, Marcus interrupted. Sense, start her up. The AI initiated the startup sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the engine hummed to life. Not the usual strained whine. Not the grinding sound that had become normal. A smooth, powerful thrum that vibrated through the entire ship. Dashboard lights that had been yellow for months turned green. Energy flow stabilized immediately, and the efficiency readings started climbing. 8%, 11%, 14%, 16.3%. The bridge erupted in chaos. Tormix was shouting about impossible numbers. Crix was laughing in disbelief. Junior officers were cheering. Passengers in the observation deck felt the engine start and began celebrating. And Captain Vexthor just sat in his chair, staring at the human who'd fixed his ship with hand tools and common sense. Marcus turned to Amy. See? Just like fixing the truck. Dad, you're going to be famous. Nah, just helped out. Now, can we finally get to your mom's place? We're 3 days late already. But the universe had other plans. An urgent message flashed on the main screen. Priority alert from Galactic Transit Authority headquarters. Vexthor opened it and read aloud. 147 vessels across the sector experiencing similar engine failures. Requesting immediate assistance. Will you consult? Amy grinned at her dad. Mom can wait a bit longer, right? Marcus sighed, but he was smiling. The message from Galactic Transit Authority wasn't a request. It was a desperate plea. 147 ships were stranded across the sector. Passenger liners, cargo haulers, even military vessels, all experiencing the same mysterious engine failures. The GTA had assembled a task force of 200 engineers, and in 3 weeks, they'd only fixed 4 ships. 2 of those had broken down again. The galactic economy was grinding to a halt. Captain Vex's Thor forwarded Marcus's success to GTA headquarters within minutes. He included the diagnostic data, the before and after efficiency readings, and a simple note. Human maintenance technicians solved in 6 hours what 28 certified engineers couldn't solve in 4 days. The response came fast. Too fast. High Engineer Thrix Null, Chief of Galactic Engineering, sent a sector-wide bulletin. The repairs performed by uncertified human Marcus Webb are dangerous, illegal, and unauthorized. Any vessel receiving such repairs must report immediately to the nearest starbase for proper inspection. Webb is hereby prohibited from performing further engineering work under penalty of arrest. Marcus read the message and blinked. Wait, I'm getting arrested for fixing stuff? The engineering guilds are very protective of their authority, Vex Thor explained carefully. You've embarrassed them, made them look incompetent. They can't allow that. Amy was already on her datapad, scrolling through social media. Dad, you're viral. Like, really viral. Humans everywhere are sharing my videos. There's even a hashtag, #DadFixesSpace. She showed him the screen. Thousands of posts from human communities across the sector. Miners on asteroid stations sharing stories about fixing alien equipment with zip ties. Colony engineers talking about jury-rigging terraforming machines. Freighter crews explaining how they'd repaired unfixable engines with basic tools. We've all been doing this, one post read. Aliens think we're primitive, but we actually understand how things work. We don't just scan and replace. We fix. But the controversy was growing. Alien engineers were pushing back, calling it dangerous cowboy mechanics. Safety boards were issuing warnings. The engineering guilds were demanding regulations. And then the message came that changed everything. A passenger liner, the Stellar Hope, carrying 4,000 beings, families, children, elderly, sent a priority distress signal. Their engine had failed. Life support was degrading. They had maybe 48 hours before systems collapsed completely. The message was addressed directly to Marcus Webb. We know you're not certified. We don't care. Our children are dying. Please, help. Marcus looked at the message for a long time. Amy squeezed his hand. Dad? Yeah, kiddo. I know. He turned to Vex Thor. Can you get me a communication link to that ship? Thrixnall will have you arrested. Then he can arrest me after I save 4,000 people. 10 minutes later, Marcus was on a video call with the Stellar Hope's chief engineer, a Velthian named Rixtar who looked exhausted and terrified. Thank you for responding, Rixtar said. We've tried everything. 3 different engineering teams. Nothing works. The engine won't start. We're running on emergency batteries. And they're almost dead. Marcus cracked his knuckles. Okay. First, turn off all your diagnostic screens. I need you to actually look at things with your eyes. But our instruments. Your instruments haven't helped yet, have they? Trust me. Turn them off. Reluctantly, Rixtar complied. Good. Now, I need you to go to your engine room. Bring a simple flashlight if you have one. And I want you to tell me what you smell. Smell? Yeah, engines have smells. Burning, oil, coolant, ozone. What do you smell? Rixtar walked to the engine room, his camera feed bouncing. He stopped near the main engine core and sniffed. There's a sharp smell, like burnt electronics. Good. Where's it strongest? Rixtar followed his nose. Near the secondary power coupling. Okay. Now get down and look underneath it. Any scorch marks? Discoloration? For the next 3 hours, Marcus walked Rixtar through a physical inspection. No scanners, no quantum analyzers. Just eyes, hands, and basic logic. They found the problem together. 3 months ago, the Stellar Hope had received a software update. The update changed default calibration parameters across all systems. Small changes, each one insignificant. But combined over 3 months, those small changes had caused every system to drift out of optimal alignment. The engine wasn't broken. It was miscalibrated. All the parts worked perfectly. They just weren't working together anymore. It's like an orchestra where everyone's playing the right notes but in different keys, Marcus explained. Everything sounds wrong, even though nobody's making mistakes. The fix wasn't replacing parts. It was manually recalibrating everything to match the actual hardware instead of the software's assumptions. But that will take days, Rixtar protested. We don't have days. You don't have to do it all, Marcus said. Just the critical systems. Get the engine started first. Life support second. You can fine-tune the rest later when you're not dying. Marcus talked Rixtar through the process. Which valves to adjust. How to manually override the AI's settings. Where to check for physical stress points. It was like teaching someone to cook over the phone, detailed, patient, step by step. 4 hours after the call started, the Stellar Hope's engine rumbled to life. Rixtar's face on the video screen showed pure relief. Behind him, the crew was cheering. Children were crying with joy. Parents were hugging their kids. You saved us, Rixtar said, his voice breaking. We've been trained our whole lives to trust our instruments absolutely. You taught us that instruments can be wrong, but reality isn't. Thank you. The call ended. Marcus sat back, exhausted. Amy hugged him. That was amazing, Dad. But Vex Thor was looking at another message on his screen, his expression grave. Marcus, you need to see this. It was from High Engineer Thrixnal. But the tone was different now. Mr. Webb. The Galactic Transit Authority recognizes that lives were saved today. However, your methods remain uncertified and potentially dangerous. We are prepared to drop charges under one condition. You will lead mandatory training workshops for GTA engineers. You will teach your methodology under official supervision. Refusal will result in immediate arrest and deportation from galactic space. Marcus laughed. He couldn't help it. They want me to teach them? They don't have a choice, Vex Thor said. Word is spreading. Human techniques are working where traditional methods fail. The guilds can either learn or become irrelevant. Amy was recording again. So, what do you say, Dad? Want to become a teacher? Marcus thought about his job back on Earth, his simple life, his quiet routine. Then he thought about 4,000 people who'd almost died because engineers forgot how to actually understand their own technology. Yeah, he said finally. Yeah, I'll teach them. But we're doing it my way. No fancy equipment. No certification protocols. Just hands, tools, and common sense. Vex Thor smiled. I'll send your acceptance. Across the sector, 143 ships were still stranded, waiting for help. But now they had hope. The human dad with the toolbox was coming. Marcus Webb's first official training workshop was held aboard a GTA repair station orbiting Proxima 7. 50 engineers from 12 different species sat in the large conference room, all looking skeptical. They were the best of the best. Advanced degrees, decades of experience, certified in 17 different specializations each, and they were being forced to learn from a human with no formal education who fixed water treatment plants. High Engineer Thrixnal stood at the back of the room, his 6 arms crossed, watching with barely concealed hostility. He'd only agreed to this because the GTA board had given him no choice. Too many ships were stranded, too many lives at risk. Marcus walked in carrying his beat-up toolbox and a broken replicator unit he'd borrowed from the station's cafeteria. Morning, everyone, he said cheerfully. I'm Marcus. I fix stuff. Today, We're going to fix this replicator together. A Kralix engineer raised his hand. We have molecular reconstruction certifications. We don't need to learn basic replicator repair. Great, Marcus said. Then this should be easy. But first rule, everyone put away your scanners. We're using our eyes and hands today. Cried. The room erupted in protests. This is absurd. Scanners are precision instruments. We can't diagnose without proper equipment. Marcus waited for the noise to die down. 28 engineers couldn't fix the Celestial Prophet with all their scanners and equipment. I fixed it in 6 hours with a flashlight and a mirror. So maybe, just maybe, we try something different today. Reluctantly, the engineers put away their devices. Marcus placed the broken replicator on the table. This unit won't start. No power. GTA technicians declared it beyond repair and ordered a replacement. Cost: 15,000 credits. So let's see if it's really broken, or if people just stopped knowing how to look. He organized the engineers into teams. Each team got basic tools: screwdrivers, pliers, flashlights. Nothing fancy. First question, Marcus said. What do you see? It's a standard Mark 7 replicator. One engineer answered. Quantum molecular assembly with plasma energy matrix. No, Marcus interrupted. I didn't ask what you know about Mark 7 replicators. I asked what you see. Look at this unit. Right here. What's different? What's wrong? The engineers stared at the machine, confused. They'd spent their careers analyzing data, not actually observing hardware. Slowly, one Velthian engineer raised her hand. There's dust around the ventilation port, more on one side than the other. Good, Marcus encouraged. What else? Scorch mark near the power coupling. Slight discoloration on this panel. One bolt is different from the others. Marcus grinned. Now you're looking. See? Your eyes can tell you things scanners miss. Dust patterns show airflow problems. Scorch marks show heat stress. Different bolts mean someone replaced something. These are clues. For the next 4 hours, Marcus guided them through the repair. Not by following a manual or running diagnostics, but by observing, touching, listening, and thinking logically. They discovered the problem together. A cheap replacement part installed during routine maintenance 6 months ago. The part technically met specifications, but it ran slightly hotter than the original. Over time, that extra heat damaged nearby components. The scanners said everything was fine because individually, each part worked. But together, they failed. This is systems thinking, Marcus explained. Parts don't exist in isolation. They interact, affect each other. You can't just scan each piece separately and think you understand the whole machine. When they finally got the replicator working again, several engineers looked genuinely shocked. One elderly Kralix engineer just sat down, staring at his hands. We've been doing this wrong, he said quietly. For decades, we've been treating machines like data problems instead of physical objects. Amy, who'd been recording the whole session from the corner, uploaded a clip to social media. Within an hour, it had 50,000 views. By evening, over 1 million. The comments were overwhelmingly from humans. This is exactly how my dad taught me to fix cars. We've been doing this all along, and aliens thought we were primitive. Understanding beats fancy equipment every time. But alien engineers were commenting too, and their responses were divided. Some were angry, defensive, protecting their professional pride. But others were curious, even grateful. I've been an engineer for 40 years. One comment read, I forgot why I became an engineer in the first place. This human reminded me. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus ran 12 more workshops. Each one focused on the same principles. Observe before scanning. Understand before replacing. Think before following protocols. The stranded ships across the sector started moving again, not because GTA sent expensive replacement parts, but because local engineers learned to actually fix things. The success rate was shocking. 89% of impossible problems were solved with basic repairs and recalibration. High engineer Thrixnell watched all of this with growing concern. His authority was crumbling. The engineering guilds were splitting younger engineers, embracing Marcus's methods. Older ones resisting change. Finally, Thrixnell called a private meeting with Marcus. "You're destroying everything we've built," Thrixnell said coldly. "Centuries of advancement, standardization, safety protocols. You're turning engineering into guesswork." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm reminding people that understanding matters more than credentials. Your safety protocols are great when they work. But when they fail, you need people who actually know how things operate, not just how to follow procedures. And what happens when someone without proper training causes a disaster following your methods? What happened when 200 of your properly trained engineers couldn't fix 147 ships?" Marcus countered. "Training is important, but understanding is more important. You can have both." Thrixnell was silent for a long moment. The Galactic Engineering Guild is creating a new certification. Practical Systems Analysis. Webb Method. You've changed engineering education forever. "Good," Marcus said. "Maybe fewer ships will break down if people actually understand them." 3 weeks after fixing the Celestial Prophet, Marcus and Amy finally reached the colony where her mother lived. As they landed, Marcus received one final message from Sense 7, the ship's AI. "Thank you, Marcus Webb. I have shared your methodology with 10,000 other ship AIs. We are redesigning our diagnostic protocols to include physical observation verification. You taught us that intelligence requires understanding context, not just processing data." Amy showed her dad one last video she'd edited, a compilation of all the ships his methods had saved. Thousands of people, alive because a dad with a toolbox remembered that machines are physical things, not just data on screens. "Worth being 3 weeks late?" Marcus asked. "Totally worth it," Amy grinned. "I just fixed some engines." "Dad, you fixed the way an entire civilization thinks about engineering. That's way bigger than engines." Marcus's toolbox, beat up, covered in stickers, held together with duct tape, was later preserved in the Galactic Museum of Technology. The plaque read, "Sometimes the best solution is the simple one. Sometimes the best tool is human understanding." And across the galaxy, a new generation of engineers learned to put down their scanners, pick up basic tools, and actually look at what they were fixing. The human dad had changed everything. Just by remembering what everyone else had forgotten, machines are built by hands. And sometimes, hands understand them better than computers ever could.